Hello, everybody. Obviously, this is me and me alone and not with Robert. I just spoke to him and we had a little confusion about whether it was a Zoom or a StreamYard or whatever. Anyway, he'll be in a few minutes. So I'm open to taking questions from you right now. Um, Barbara's in the house. I don't know who else is. There's a few of you. Um, I had apparently he also thought I booked it for 1:30 and I had it in one place 1:30, one place 1, and then I posted today that it would be up at 1. So we can play like this is just Nancy Jean's doing readings until he comes. Sorry about that. So how's everybody doing? Obviously, I need more rest. I need more something. I've been trying to juggle a lot of requests from y'all. I got a whole lot of requests in for 6-month readings. I got a couple grid requests in, so I've been booking that along with readers, and I'm straightening out which readers are going to be coming in and which psychics and who when they're going to be. This thing's going to go on until into the fall, guys. So this is where we are, and I hope you've enjoyed them so far. They've been educational for me. Who's T Grand Chicken? Now there's a name for you. See, T Grand Chicken. I did garden chicken. I'm sorry, garden chicken. That makes more sense. Okay. How am I feeling? I'm feeling fine. I just wish I could get my mind in step with, like last night, I slept for over 9 hours. I had a whole lot of things, going on. I taught my last garden class was last night, which was fun. And it was really a good class. Vivian showed up from Puerto Rico, so that was fun. And I'm going to set up all of the garden classes. The people who have been part of them, they've been getting them as YouTube videos. I'm going to set them all up into a playlist. And then if someone has a garden, and this is not going to happen tomorrow, guys, so don't go looking for this, but I will let you know when it happens. But I'm going to set all the garden training that I have that's on video up into a playlist. So if you own a garden, you can go back and see how well they worked with other people. And I have to kind of curate those shows because I used to have a garden group that would meet on Saturdays. And Vicki Howell, I know you're moving. What can I say? Vicki is moving back to the Midwest from where she's been. And yeah, you got your own busy things to do, girl. So don't worry about it. And hi to Dr. Gail. She's in the room. I've had a lot of response off of the video I did with Linda, because one of the things that came up was protection and how to protect ourselves. And apparently a whole lot of people had never seen the violet flame or understood protection prayers or understood how you can kind of slowly build up. And it's not something that's going to slam you in the face and say, by the way, I'm ugly gray energy, but I'm here. Probably the best story about that was a person who was taking one of my garden classes, and I always included the violet flame with the garden because the garden is a little like pendulums. Pendulums pull in a lot of energy very personally through you. I don't feel as guarded with them, so I always make sure I'm cleared to read with I'm cleared to read with a pendulum. I actually make sure every day I'm kind of cleared to read with everything. But this one woman sort of heard me read it. She thought, well, it's kind of an interesting thing. I think I'll read up on that. And so she already had, since she'd gotten the PDF from being in the class of the violet flame. And so she read it in the room, and it's a room apparently she'd done a lot of her reading work. You know how we tend to put our cards and our stuff in one place and we work with it. And she thought, this room seems lighter, as in the light seemed clearer around her. And she thought, that's just my imagination. You know, that's what we always do. It's not that we really are screwing with energy, it's our imaginations. But so she looked at it and she thought, well, I'm going to go say it in other rooms of the house, which when people first start with it, I tell them kind of go around your whole house and just, see how it works. So she went around and read it in the rest of her house. And then she thought her front room looked lighter and she decided it was all in her head. Well, this was during COVID. She didn't have a lot of guests, but she had one friend who they were close, and that friend used to come over and visit her. And the friend walked in and she looked around. She said, did you change the blinds in here, the drapes or something? It's so much brighter than it's been. And at that point, that's when she wrote me the note saying, this works. Yes, it does. It works if you work it. And she now says it every day in her house, and she's given it out to some other people. And my feeling about it is we don't understand, or at least before COVID, we didn't understand that a lot of the energy around us just builds up slowly. I think it's kind of the idea about if you put a frog in a pot of normal water and then heat it very slowly, the frog won't realize the water's getting hotter because of the nature of it being a cold-blooded creature. And it'll stay in the water till it boils to death. And I think for some of us, working with energy is a little like that. And people all of a sudden say, oh, I suddenly realized this was happening. I used to work in a vintage store called Dolly Python's. And she had, her company started out selling old cowboy boots, finding old vintage cowboy boots and selling. She had wonderful boots. I don't wear boots, so I never dealt with that. But when I started to work for her, she had a reader, and then the reader, she said she never did. I finally did find out after I'd been there a while that the reader had started doing dark side energy in her store. And Gretchen found out, and she said, no, we're not having any of that in here. And so the woman said, well, if you won't let me do what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave. So the woman left. And so Gretchen hadn't had a reader in, but then I was close friends with someone who was a friend of Gretchen's. And she said, you ought to talk to Nancy. She's reading at the wine bar. She'll come and read with you. And so I went over, did my rehearsal, read her, and she said, yeah, come over, we'll try it a few Saturdays. So, and the first Saturday she set me up against, it's like was a wall of windows, and there was a door there. But next to me was a black screen, like a folding screen, and I assumed it had been put there to block out the sunlight from coming in and bleaching out clothes. Long story short, I'm sitting next to this. I've got a few little crystals lined out, and it was in it was in January, and I heard a car go by. This makes it with snow tires on. And if you live where snow tires are a necessity, you probably don't hear this, but in Texas, we have people that go up to Colorado and then come back, and they drive around with their snow tires on until they get them changed again. And it makes this funny roaring sort of growling sound. And so I heard it 2 or 3 times, and I thought, is this person circling the blocks? So I got up, went around, looked out, couldn't see anything with snow tires on it, sat down, and I was back soon enough. I realized that if there'd been someone going up and down with snow tires, I would have seen them before I got back to my table, heard the snow tires again. And then I realized that the growling was coming from the screen that was next to me. And so I went and found the owner and said, this screen's making noise. And she said, "Oh, it kind of has a troubled history. Well, let me get somebody." So she got the guy who ran the vintage vinyl section. He came and he showed up with giant big electrician's gloves, the kind that go all the leather ones with the stuff in it that go all the way up to your elbows. And I went, "This is weird." So he picked the screen up and he took it out and he said, "I've been wanting her to get rid of that thing for a long time." And I was like, okay, apparently I'm not the only person who thinks this is weird. And I'm I'm just sitting there because I want to do good. I want to get I want to get a gig at this place. So I'm sitting there and he takes it away. And then he came back and there was a vintage booth behind me and it had axes and saws in it. And he said, "I need one of the axes to chop it up." So he chopped it up so no one would ever take it home again and use it as a screen. And I said, "What's the deal with the screen?" And I said, "It's just a black screen that blocks out light." And everybody looked at me like I was nuts. And they said, "That screen wasn't black. It had Victorian stickers all over it." And I went, "I saw a black screen, guys. I saw a black screen." So the owner, Gretchen, came up and she said, "It's weird you would see it that way," because she said, "I actually I got it out of a house when they were selling a house clearing. And there'd been a murder in the room where that screen was." And I was like, "Oh, good." So anyway, vintage stores things people bring into vintage stores tend to hold the energy. And so I went around with her to the different booths and I used the violet flame in there every week I went in, and I burnt sage and I did a lot of clearing. And it took 3.5 years to clear out all the energy that had, over the 18 years she owned the store, that had been brought in there. But if you walked in there and you were just a civilian and you weren't looking for it, you'd think you wouldn't sense it unless, now we did have some people who made it to the front door and didn't spend a whole lot of time in there. And once we got it cleared out, it worked out a lot better. We had a lot of vendors that moved on because they didn't like the atmosphere anymore, which is fine by me. She did have a Civil War soldier, a young man, and he was a ghost, and he was in the back of her store. Now, the building we were in had been built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It was an old Piggly Wiggly store. And he came with the land. And he was interesting. But when COVID hit, I didn't come anymore. She said, "He's gone." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Find out where my Civil War soldier's gone." We used to have people who would come up to me at the store and go, "That's so cool. It's a vintage store and you've got all this old stuff and you've got a guy in a Civil War uniform over there." Was not there. He was there to them. He did go away. And she said, "But I liked him here." And he was a guardian. He was not an evil energy. He had lived in that area and had come back, and he was watching over the neighborhood. And when COVID hit, he watched over the whole neighborhood. He's now back in the store occasionally. I went in there and I saw him in the back. Okay. We are going to have on my shows, I haven't booked him yet. His name's a guy named Tim Walter. He does ground clearings and space clearings, and he's from England, and he works with the ley lines and earth energetics, and he's going to talk to us about how he fell into doing that and what he does with that. That's another person who's coming on. And so, yeah, there's 6 planets in alignment tonight. Can we all get message from all the planets? Okay, I don't do much about astrology. I know enough about astrology to know that I know just enough to be dangerous if I try to delve in it too much. There's several good videos out about the alignments that are going on around us right now. We also have a new moon, almost a new moon on this weekend. So there's a lot of stuff happening, and I unfortunately am not the channel for you. I did have Dorothy Morgan on, and we talked a little bit about that. the best way to learn how to work with that kind of energy is to really learn your own chart. And then you can see how those are going to hit you. I have some interesting Saturn in my chart, and this stuff's that's part of what happened to me when I got really sick. I had a lot of stuff hit my Saturn, and things were lined up and just banging on it. That's why I know what's, kind of what's that I have to be careful over the next couple weeks, because I have several other things, but I'm doing some healing that's beyond what I'm beyond my doctors and healing. Tomorrow I'm going to try a new acupuncturist and see how that goes, because I love acupuncture. I think it's wonderful. It always calms me down. And for some reason, I've been having numbness in my hands, and we have diagnosed it enough to know it's not from the blood pressure meds, and it may be the repeat of carpal tunnel. And this is true. This lady's true. Christy Storms just had her land cleared last month. And it took, I don't know how many shamans, but that girl lives in an interesting space with Native American land. So somebody wants me to pull a card for all of us. I love this card. We are transcending. Can you see it? It's Pegasus, and I'm going to read it. I love this deck. This deck is a Denise Lynn deck. It's the Sacred Forest Oracle. I find it to be one of the more accurate oracle decks. I always find it to be true, and I've got to figure out 23. Yeah, and it's where we kind of all think we are, and I really think we are, and that could be the 8 planets lined up, could be talking about. If I can get to the page, I can. 28, not 23. If I can get to the page, I can read it to you. Okay. Pegasus transcending. Here's a picture. Grab hold of that mane. Pegasus is leaping into the sky with you on its back. You can feel the wind rush on the winged horse as it climbs higher and higher, his muscles rippling beneath you. You are keenly aware of his majesty, his strength, the power, as you are brought closer and closer to the heavens. And the history is replete with myths about riding on winged horses. But the spirit of Pegasus says to us, you're on a pilgrimage of the soul. It's time to transcend the weight of earthly burdens. Fly over situations that have been pulling you down. Please try to get your energy lighter. And don't involve yourself with the drama of others. And that's primary right now with what's going on around us in the world. When you remember that you have come from spirit and eternal, and our challenging situations will resolve themselves, perform the transformation for yourself at hand. And speaking of, can I talk a little bit, Christy, about what happened around you? Oh, she's having, okay. Christy lives on a house. I'm going to have her on and we're going to do a show. She came to me for a 6-month reading, I think. And anyway, when I was talking to her, I realized her house was possessed. And since then, she's brought in shamans and wise people, and they've cleaned the land and found out there's some stuff in their land they can't clean. It's just there. She's in the West where there's Native American influences. That would be a reading, Christy, I'd have to do with you. Who's in the studio scaring the dog and messing with their lights? But when I told Christy, I can see what's happening around you, but I'm not a person who does those kind of clearings. And she got in the right people, and it took a while. And apparently you're getting some secondary reaction. It's a fascinating story. I think when we get to it, you're really going to enjoy hearing it. Okay. How do I research the ley lines? And it's LEY if you want to find them. That'll help. I live in Florida. I know Native Americans knew these ley lines. Any suggestions? There are ley line groups. Um, Rory Duff, Rory Duff, Duff. He works with them. I know he's been sick in the last year. He was doing a lot of heavy duty work, and I think that it's finally kind of got to him. But you can look up some of his work. He was sending out a monthly newsletter. You can go to his website and see what information is there. There are Americans who are working with ley lines. We have some interesting ley lines and some interesting dragon lines in the US. Robert, who's coming on with me when we get to that point. He's eating his lunch, I think, right now. He thought he had another half hour. I told him, how do you find a ley line? And he said, well, he lives up where there's real trees. He lives up in Minnesota where there's trees. And he said, you go out in the woods and you find a tree that's covered with burls. And I'll see if I can show you what burls look like. Let's see if I have one of my Hogarth pictures up. No, I don't have my Hogarth picture in here. Anyway, burls are when something injures the bark of the tree and the tree heals itself, but it's like it would be akin to a superfluous growth or cancerous growth on us. And he said, the problem with ley lines is they have so much energy when they grow under a tree. When the tree grows on top of a ley line, it gets all this extra energy and it grows these burls. And he said, so you go out, you find a tree with burls, and then you look around and see if in 360 you can see another tree with burls. And that will give you the direction of the ley line. And he said, and that should give you an idea of how to find it. And so that's one thing you could do. Look at trees around you. This next Tuesday, I was going to do a thing on elementals, but I'm going to talk to Dr. Gale instead. But I was going to talk about Hogarth, because Hogarth, I have changed when I found him 3 years ago, when Robert helped me find him, till now. And this spring, I knew a lot more energy is flowing through the ley lines, and this comment has a whole lot to do with it. Had a draken appear in my waking hours. They're coming back. A lot of the elementals are coming back into our visible world. So, and they're coming in, they ride on the ley lines. And I didn't get your pictures, Barbara. I didn't get them. Sorry, I don't know. I don't have one garden left. I only have one oracle garden left, and I'm keeping it because I've had people approach me about recreating it, and I want to use that as the thing. So I have no gardens left. So if you have a garden and you want to sell it, I maybe should start a black market garden thing. No, I don't want to handle any more objects. But anyway, so the fairies, I know when I was in the hospital, I was kind of grieving because I'd had to block out all the external energy in order to work with what was going on with me in there. And I was sitting there on Tuesday and I said, oh, where have all my fairies gone? And my whole room lit up with little fairy lights. It was lots of fun. Ginny P is new here. Boy, is this going to be an interesting set of conversations for you, dear. If you haven't been around the stuff we talk about normal things and some pretty not abnormal things, just things that are not part of. I think paranormal is a good word because it's beyond the normal, but it's there. And it's part of what we do. And let me see. Yeah, that's true. The extra critters we're seeing from the elementals is that our vibrations are rising and we're getting to where we can see them. For those of you who have been around here since the beginnings, I have a dragon named Cecil that comes and gets me, and he takes me to the elementals, and he has me explain how elementals work with us. And those would be elementals. When if you see sparkles around you when you're meditating somewhere, those would be elementals. But you're right, Ginny. And who else is? And Carol B is new. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I've grown quite a few new members. This is probably not my best show, since normally I'm right on time and usually are my guests. And it's not Robert's fault. It's my fault. My head was not screwed on right. And I need to write things down more often. Oh, and I got another. Patricia Enright is also new here. And we got some old timers. And hit the like button and let me know. And Vicki is not new here. Vicki has been taking classes with me and done readings with me, and she's really good, and she's moving back to the Midwest, and I don't know what she's going to be doing with the channel. But I'm going to be picking up a lot of readers you may have never heard of, because I'm going to have them explain their journeys, because every single journey is different, and some of them we hear more about. And one person whose journey is ending today, and I don't know if you know who she is, but her name is Marie, and her channel is called Marie's Table. And she's retiring as of today. She said, I'm done. We went through the death of her first husband with her, and she had probably one of the most powerful readings I ever saw. A lot of her stuff was, is this the one, and that sort of stuff, which are not my favorite things to do. But she did a reading where she saw, and this was before January 6th, where she saw Nancy Pelosi talking with the generals, and they had an idea Trump was going to pull January 6th, and she was trying to help them get aligned with it. And she was very worried at the end of the reading because she didn't think that she could do it. It's a very it was. I remember seeing that reading and going, that's real. That's happening. She's seeing it symbolically. And when she glanced back in the room after having seen it, she watched Nancy Pelosi with the American Eagle on one side of her. And I can't remember what the second thing was. But anyway, so for those of you who know who Marie is, say goodbye. I'm going to try to get around to talk about her journey, but I don't think she will, because she wants to retire. And here comes Robert. Yay! We've been waiting for you.
Hi, Nancy. How are you?
I've been telling them all my tales of working with elementals. I explained how you helped me find my ley line tree and all that good stuff. This is Robert Brunjes, and he doesn't have his last name. So this is Robert. And Robert has a long and interesting life. And now we're going to go into kind of the interviews. And I hope that everyone will enjoy this. And I'm not going to be following comments now because I'm going to be focusing on Robert. Okay. This is the 20 questions, and I'm asking all the readers the same questions in the same order, but everybody's answer is different. Opening and origins for you. When did you first realize that you had psychic abilities, or were going to do energy work?
I think that my first esoteric connection was with my spirit guides. And as I recall, that was back in the early 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
It was after the harmonic convergence, but before the precession of the equinox back then. And there was an intuitive lady here who was an excellent intuitive. She introduced me to my guides. Mm-hmm. And what I discovered is I kind of discovered working with them almost by accident. It was a situation where there was a moment or a period where I had absolutely nothing on my mind. And of course, that's the space, that's the gap that they were looking for. Mm-hmm. So that's when they kind of zipped in, so to speak, what it is that they wanted to say to me. So then as a matter of practice, that's what I began to do. I just simply quieted my mind to the degree that I could and create that space for them to talk to me. So.
Well, great. Was there a single moment, or did it gradually build on you over time? And I know you have a first experience story about energetic healing, but
Yeah, I've actually had three paths, and initially, of course, I became an energetic healer, then an Akashic Records reader, and then ultimately a channeler.
mm-hmm.
Of course, these paths overlapped. They overlapped to some degree, and they were contemporaneous. But I'll
Mm-hmm.
answer one related to the Akashic Records. And it was actually, I went through a training program. It was a 3-day weekend sort of a thing. The following Monday night, when I got home from work, I said, okay, I'm going to try this. And I tried opening my records, and it worked. Not only did
Mm-hmm.
it work really well, but the issue and the answers that I was looking for came to me quite easily. So,
Yeah.
so that was kind of that moment where I knew that the metaphysical gap could be bridged. And so,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's how I met Robert. Was he did my Akashic Records at a very interesting time in my life when I was ascending like crazy and getting snatched into different dimensions and having heart problems from it. Who did you do your Akashic training with?
it was a group called the Akashic Records International, or Akashic Records Consultants International, excuse me. And I had a teacher who was an incredibly gifted reader, but she was an inspiring teacher as well.
Good.
So she showed me basically what was possible with the records. So
Cool. Akashic Records are something, well, as I told Robert when I first met him, much to his chagrin, I felt like I'd been backdooring into them for years, but I wasn't doing the formal things people and get trained in it so you understand what you're looking at. But I was just sort of going in and rummaging around, which is not the way. And then, did you notice that you had experiences as a child?
I didn't. I really didn't. My abilities were kind of developed, kind of at the time of the precession of the equinox, 1994 and on. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't so much something that I felt that I had before. It was something that I began to develop. So
Okay, it's when you kind of woke. It's like learning you have a new skill. Okay, now I can do this. I've gotten the right leanings. How did people around you react as you began to open up or share your experiences?
well, when I began my spiritual path, I was really fortunate in the sense that I had a close group of friends that I was always able to share my experiences with. And they were metaphysically and spiritually oriented as well. And I actually learned from them as well. So that was my plan, so to speak, that I was able to identify with fairly early on.
Good, and and you'll find that it'll be there when you need it. I think if you're looking at that. Uh, did you seek training? Yeah, we already know you went to Akashic Records, or have you explored a lot on your own?
Yeah, I went through a lot of different trainings through multiple different avenues. The first thing that I did on my own, I just basically started to read as much as I possibly could about the metaphysical and the spiritual, and that was to expand my own consciousness. And then one weekend, I was at the metaphysical bookstore, which is where I was a lot. On the bulletin board, there was a little note card, and then it had, where you had the little tabs, you'd pull off the phone number,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a energetic healer locally here, and she was offering classes in touch healing or hands-on healing. And so, of course, I called her up, and of course, I went through her class. And the
Mm-hmm.
energy was something that was very visceral for me, and it was something that I really resonated with. And then I pursued that, and I went through Dr. Eric Pearl's program and
Mm-hmm.
becoming a reconnective healer. To be a reconnective healer and to reconnect people as well.
Cool.
There was
Okay.
Yeah, about the same time there was a mystery school here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the guiding light of the mystery school was actually a man that was really well rooted in Native American shamanic traditions. And so that was very useful. Well, a mystery school, of course, is going to give you a broad band of experiences, but it was learning those traditions was very helpful as well in terms of some of the healing traditions.
Mm-hmm. And are there specific tools that become part of your that have gone forward with you from your practice early on?
Well, the records themselves are a wonderful tool. There's no charts or anything like that, but I think that when I first began reading, it was reading my own records, and
Mm-hmm.
that was actually a mandate before you could take coursework to read the records of other people. So I found myself at the coffee shop on Saturday morning just journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And you really have the opportunity to ask any question that you'd like, including esoteric questions. So to ask about the nature of our being, even to about the nature of source as well. So, and then of course, in terms of healing, my favorite tool was crystals, and you're very familiar with those.
Yes.
I really resonated with the crystals, and that's no pun actually. And so we asked them to bring forward this higher dimensional energy, and as well as wisdom. And I developed my own actual healing modality by the use of the geometries with the crystals, as well as my reconnective energy.
Mm-hmm. You're a proud possessor of one of my eggs, actually.
Possessor of one of your eggs.
Okay. And what is the best advice one of your teachers gave you?
Well, I think my Akashic teacher was my most significant mentor. And basically, what she said was, and this was a constant refrain, that when you're working with somebody else, it's not about you. And so
Mm-hmm.
her point was is that be conscious of your own filters or your own biases because you don't want to be bringing those forward. So
Yeah. And that can be hard sometimes, you know.
yeah, it is. It's something that you need to be conscious of all the time. And a good intuitive, a good medium, or a good reader is going to try to be conscious of that.
Yeah. If they start telling you something and it sounds like it came out of a Chinese fortune cookie, and it could be anybody, you kind of know you're not getting tuned into, unless you're a Chinese fortune cookie. Um, how did you learn to tell the difference between psychic impressions and your imagination?
Well, simply put, I had an innate knowing that it wasn't my thought. And when I'm downloading it, well, I'm clairvoyant as well as clairsentient. So
Mm-hmm.
the information I receive is kind of in a bundle. It's both visual as well as cognitive. And there's typically some emotional energy that's bound around it as well. And it's such a unique impression. It's just not something I would put together. It's just obviously this is not coming from me. So
Okay. And Robert, well, can I tell them what you do for a living, or do you not want them to know?
it's okay.
He's an architect, so he works with imaginative. He has to work and take things from his brain and make them into the physical world. So he works a lot with his imagination. So that's, and a lot of us don't do that. I mean, so you've had another creative way to see to contrast how you bring information in.
Yeah, it is. It is a creative discipline, and so obviously for decades I've been kind of walking between worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, sometimes the non-physical world actually feels more real to me than the real world.
I'm
But
happier over here, let me tell you. And okay, have there ever been moments when you've been practicing that you really kind of doubted yourself and you had to rein yourself in?
I think it's natural that you would doubt yourself sometimes. These are esoteric art forms, and so you may experience a reading with somebody and they're really not resonating to it, and you might question yourself and so on. But over time, you build your confidence and listen to the reinforcement that you are getting from your clients when you're working with them. You know, that this was a very positive experience. It was very useful. It was very insightful and that type of thing. You may be familiar with Lee Carroll that channels Cryon. And
Mm-hmm.
he was saying one time, he was talking about an experience where he was on stage and he was going to channel Cryon. He was sitting in an auditorium that was filled with several hundred people, and he'd been doing this for a couple of years. And he had this doubt. He said he didn't know whether he wasn't sure whether or not Cryon was going to show up that day, in which case he would look pretty silly with all these people. So I enjoyed that even he, I mean, he's a titan of the trans channels.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I appreciated that even he would share that experience. So
I think we're not human. I think we've lost all tie to our humanity if we don't question. I know when I used to read tarot, every Tuesday I'd be at that table, set the crystals up, get the cards out. Every Tuesday until I finally said, no, that's not an appropriate thought. But it was, what if it doesn't show up today? And
yeah,
you just have to have faith that it's showing up and dive in and see where you go.
you do. You do have to have faith. In my case, that I'm going to be in the rest. I'm going to be in the records, and I'm going to be supported by the masters, teachers, loved ones, guides, angels, whoever is going to be there that day. So
That's right. And how do you handle skepticism from yourself and from others?
I never really experienced skepticism from other people, but then I never shared with my family what I was doing either. So maybe that's a good reason.
There's a whole bunch of people in the chat are going, don't tell your family.
And so, and it's not that I don't know what they would have said, but they would have never had a frame of reference to understand in the least what it was that I was talking about.
Mhm.
I had been a little bit guarded earlier in my career. I had been a little bit guarded about that this might leak out in my professional arena.
Mhm.
That would be as if someone came to me and said, Bob, we want you to design an office building, but then they discovered this that they might fear. I'm a little bit too far out in the ether, a little too woo or something like that. But interestingly enough, I did have one experience where I was working with a client, and it was actually their home needed to be restored because there were damages due to water and things like this, and it impacted the health of the couple. Had two young boys, and so through a mutual friend, she discovered that I did the reconnective healing, and so she asked me to work with her youngest son, who at that time was about 7 years old. And so I agreed to do it, and he got better. And interestingly enough, a couple of days later, basically, she called me up and she said, well, my neighbor, they want you to work with their son. And then 2 doors down, there's a couple that would like you to work with their children as well. And then at the time, I just said, I can't go down that path.
Mhm.
I've got my practice, and it's really kind of overwhelming at the moment. But it was one of those cases where, despite what you might think, there are paths that cross. So
Yes, they do. And have your abilities gone through strong and weaker phases? And do you have something you could align that to?
I think there are. In my case, it was well, I came out of the gates feeling really strong about the Akashic and doing readings for other people. There was a point that I think that I probably was taking on too much in terms of what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I questioned whether or not I should continue to do the readings at the level that I was doing them at. And whenever at a crossroads, I will reach out to spirit, and the answer that I always receive is just be who you are. And then and we need to look inside and answer that question. And so
Right.
And the answer, of course, is that, yeah, I will continue to do the records.
Okay. And I think sometimes we get to a point where we feel a little bit weak because we really need to relook at our skills, and maybe we have been pushing it too hard, or we've been giving too much, and we are vessels that need to be refilled, and that happens to us too. Um, how do you protect your energy?
Um, well, there's several, in terms of the records, there's several ways to access them. And of course, I do it through a sacred prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And the prayer evokes and sets the intention for protection right away.
Right.
And in terms of healing, I always felt being the conduit of this higher order energy. And so I never felt drained by energy healing, and I never felt really the need for the protection. I think we are at a point in time in terms of the new energy on the planet. We're
Mm-hmm.
at this point of inflection in terms of light over darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And even Cryon has mentioned that the protection that we thought we needed before, it's not so much the case anymore. So
Good. And then, um, okay, this is sort of a change. We're going into your wisdom and your insights now, Robert. Be easy. Do you think psychic abilities are innate, or can anyone develop them?
I do. I do believe that everybody has these abilities innately inside them, and I believe that they're part of our God-given toolbox when we incarnate into the 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply a matter of expanding our own consciousness and awareness to begin to flush these out, to bring these forward. But that being said, I mean, obviously, people seem to have these very much at the surface, that it appeared to have been very innate with them. They they had these experiences as children and that type of thing. And that, of course, was all dependent upon their life plan. But
Mm-hmm.
if you set your mind to it, we're in an energy now where actually the veil is actually more transparent than it has been. So it's an excellent opportunity for people to begin to explore that and develop their abilities.
Okay, because and what should people do when they're getting signs that they're feeling gifted? I mean, you came to it later in life. I was always a brat, so I was always out there in it. But you know, I have one of the reasons I'm doing these 20 questions is so many people are coming to me now and they're waking up. And what would you say to someone who wants to figure out if they're gifted or not?
I would say, well, do what you feel compelled to do. And as long as that is also in alignment with the sense of joy that you're experiencing when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So begin to develop it, begin to explore it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to look at people that are very accomplished in our field. I mean, but don't let that stop you. Don't compare yourself to those who are very gifted or very skilled. They've been at this for years and they've matured and developed these things. So if you compare yourself, you might feel, fear could stop you in the tracks.
That's right. It's
But
faith.
you're right. We're going through this awakening with a great deal of, individuals and it's because of the new energy on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And as people move into what I'll refer to as the awakened collective, they feel that they want to be in service with other people. So,
Okay. And how has your work changed your worldview or beliefs about life and death?
um, that's a really good question. How much time do we have here?
Well, I told him it was 1 to 2, but since we started at 1:30, we can go to 2:30, Robert. I'm fine with that.
Um, Simply put, I think to begin with, it would be how to be peaceful in an unpeaceful world. And that it was the realization that our presence here in the 3D is for the purposes of experience.
Mm-hmm.
This is an experiential schoolhouse that we're in. And so we're actually experiencing things that we cannot experience on the other side of the veil. So rather than shaking your fist at your soul or at source, just look at it as look at it from the standpoint of how is this moving me forward in terms of my spiritual evolution and the perfection of my soul.
Good. That's lovely. And what is one of the more powerful readings you've done, if you can share it?
I think that would have to be where someone that I was working with experienced a instantaneous remission of a physical dysfunction that they were experiencing. For example, I was working with one lady, and what she said is that I've always had a problem. I've always felt pain in my throat, and it's always been sore, and the doctors haven't been able to help me. So what's happening with this? What's going on with this? And so then in the records, I discovered that there was a jealous sister that had actually slashed her throat. And then as soon as I said that, it just clicked. She said it just disappeared. And that's kind of the nature of the Akashic energy. One of the places that it is stored is in our DNA. And so it's really vibrating at every cell in our body. And so what happens is that when we bring the understanding forward about the issue, there's a healing that occurs. There's an understanding and healing that can occur at the heart level. And sometimes there will be a remission in terms of physical symptoms. And that's just one example. It's happened other times as well. So
Yeah. I experienced something like that coming in contact. I could never wear necklaces. And when I finally got taken back through and realized the number of times I'd been hung, you wouldn't want something around your throat either.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Someone may say to you, my neck has always been really sore, and it's possible maybe they were hung in another lifetime. And some people are a little bit nervous about an Akashic reading where all of a sudden they're going to understand that they did do something wrong. They're okay with being hung, but they don't want to learn about something that they did in a past life that they shouldn't have done. Another instance of some of the more powerful readings would be when someone close to the person that I'm reading for has transitioned.
Mm-hmm.
And that soul sometimes will request either permission to sit in or basically to deliver a message through me. And typically it's a very brief message. I really love you, or, I regret certain things, or I didn't tell you that I loved you enough, and that type of a thing. So, and that can be extremely powerful for the person that's having the reading. So,
Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to advice and inspiration. What advice would you give someone about starting to explore their gifts? That we've talked a little bit about that, but how would you say put your toe in the water or just jump in?
I would say, get the training, get the appropriate training in terms of doing what it is that you intend on doing, and don't let fear stop you. Again, begin to look into your emotions about how you're feeling about it, setting fear aside for the moment.
Right.
Do I feel compelled to do this? Is this really resonating with me? Is it in alignment with, joy? And then ultimately, is it in alignment with what you feel could be, your path, or what
Mm-hmm.
the source has asked you to be doing now? So,
Okay. And are there any daily habits or exercises you recommend that someone could do to kind of build themselves up? Or
I meditate daily, and so I would propose that initially, and connect with your guides, because there's a they share part of your soul space. They're always with you. They know what you know, and again, if you can quiet the mind, connect with them, and also you can go to an intuitive and they can inform you about how you can best connect with your guides. What's the best way? It might be a walk in nature. It doesn't, and they might be connecting with you in different ways. They might be tapping you on the shoulder. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be this very, clairsentient type of an experience.
mm-hmm. Very good. How can someone find a trustworthy psychic community or a mentor?
I would, seek out your options. I mean, the internet is a great place to begin to look. And who is it that you're resonating with while you're, watching these people, while you're listening to these people? I think that's really kind of one of the most important things. One of the things that I would be conscious of is that when you're listening to people, is the information coming forward in a very judgmental or negative way. And so in all of the readings that I've done, none of the information has ever come out in a judgmental or negative manner.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's actually come out in the most loving manner possible. So
that's right. And your last question. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your whole psychic journey? That's just a tiny little question there.
That's a real question. The big thing from 30,000 feet is that we are much more powerful and magnificent and divine than we think we are. And so, don't perseverate about issues related to your self-worth, self-doubt, those type of things. And know that you're just an incredibly powerful being. And not only that, but you're unconditionally loved. And there are just an infinite number of beings on the other side of the veil that are there to send you energy, send you support, send you information, and to assist you kind of on your journey. So
great. I can tell you that what I learned from Robert was I can't, Akashic Records, I know how to get into them and kind of what to do with them, but I'm not on the level he does it. And that's not my job. I learned that there are great people like Robert out there that are good in those fields. And, he doesn't build grids as far as I know. But we do have a question from someone who you've read before. How old does Robert suggest a client be for an Akashic readings? She had a reading from you in 2021, but her daughter wants a reading, but she's only 14 and her mom wants to know if you think that's too young.
It is. There's a general rule that says that that I can't do readings for someone that's under 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I've had people that as soon as they turned 18, then of course they called up and said, no, we want a reading.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason for that is that if there's information that's being brought forward in terms of an agreement or something of that nature that might be a little bit bumpy, they don't want that person to duck. And so in other words, just enjoy life, be yourself.
Right.
And so, and then of course, as you, and then when you get to be 18 years old, come see me. So.
Okay. And someone has that question. How do I get a reading from Robert? How can they contact you?
My website. Just simply go to akashicattunement.com.
Okay, I'm going to put it in here so that you guys can see. I don't type well. And I did ask Robert this question. It was me that forgot to. .com, and that would be one. It's Akashic Attunement's one word, right?
Right. All one word.
Okay, so that's where you can go and find Robert. And trust me, it's that this woman, Jen T, said it's going to be your daughter's 18th birthday present.
Oh, okay. It's wonderful.
But, you know, I think a kid needs to, you know, especially you know your kids. I mean, and I don't read children for people. People go, oh, what's going on with my son or my daughter? I don't read for them when they're little bitty. I don't read for them when they're full grown. If they want to come and ask me a question about who they are, I can say, how is what they're doing affecting your life? But I can't spy on. I call it cosmic spying, and I don't like to do it.
Yeah, and I can't open the records of anyone other than the person who is sitting in front of me that has given me permission explicitly to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, because it's already in the person I'm reading for, it's in their Akash, there's understandings that I can bring forward because they've experienced it. It's part of their, and so sometimes motives do come forward. But we do make agreements with other people for different experiences here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things to bear in mind is that even if it's a negative experience with a person you've had here, professional, personal, or otherwise, it could be someone that you have a really positive experience with on the other side of the veil, or have had positive past life experience. Mm-hmm. And what you've done on the other side of the veil is you've asked them to assist you with a given life lesson. And they said, okay. And in the process of doing that, you've asked them to be part of a bumpy road for them. So
okay. And here's a call out to Bob. Bob is a longtime friend. I get readings about every 6 months as my guides send me vibes that I now recognize as the call. I think she mistyped it, but that's just because I'm used to mistyping because I do it all the time.
Yeah, I've been Mary. I've been doing readings with Mary for, oh gosh, over 15 years. And it's not that Mary has a conflicted life, but Mary helps a lot of people. And she'll call me for a reading and ask me how she can assist another person.
Okay.
So she's a wonderful being. So.
Well, good. We're glad we had some of your fan club show up. I think really, I don't have any more questions for you. I'm just so delighted you came on to explain what it is that kind of Akashic Records people do, you know, and it's your personal life story from eons and civilizations gone by. I'm kind of cracking up now because I'm seeing a lot of stuff on YouTube. There were civilizations here before the ones we recognize, and I'm going, I remember that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of civilizations here, and in the records you can explore, you know, your lifetimes or life expressions on Atlantis. You were on Atlantis,
yeah,
or Lemuria, and the energy is such now that basically we can move even beyond our planet. It was before; it was very
Earth-centric.
Earth-centric.
Mm-hmm.
With the new energy, however, we can move out into the star systems, into the Pleiades, into Arcturus. And so there's information that I'm able to bring forward in terms of what was it like when you were a Syrian? What was it you experienced as being a Lyran or a Vegan? And so if there's issues that are in their Akash in terms of that galactic ancestry, I'm actually able to tap into that now, which is really nice because years ago when I first started that, I was not able to do that, and people would ask me what star system was I was from, and I couldn't tap into that.
Dr. Gail will be delighted. She does work with that stuff. What is the typical questions people ask when they book with Robert?
Well, the typical questions is like you said, a lot of people are awakening, and so what is my purpose at this time? So the other question would probably be, as I mentioned, relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the dynamic here, or why is it I'm experiencing what I am experiencing? And so is there a past life issue? The other question is, am I going to meet my soulmate? Who is my soulmate? That type of a thing. So, and it's difficult to answer questions that are more future based. So, for example, it's all potential probability.
Mm-hmm.
And light beings on the other side of the veil have explained to me that from their multidimensional perspective, it's more about possibilities, potential probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so 75% is this going to happen, or is that going to happen, that type of a thing. So
yeah, moving through time is kind of an interesting, curious thing we do. But I did get people are interested in this, and you now know how to find Robert, and he can help you with your journey. And I'm sure Dr. Gail will be delighted to find out she has someone else she can send some of her little spacelings to. She does.
Yeah, they're here. The Andromedans, the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, of course, they're here to support us in our transition as we move to a higher level of consciousness, and that's really what this is all about. So.
There was a woman in my class last night who wrote me during the Lion's Gate that she woke up, she had a dream that she walked down her front porch and there was a lion sitting on her front porch. And she kind of looked at it and went running back in and locked the door of her bedroom. And about 15 minutes later, the door creaked open and this big paw came through and it said, "You can't hide from us anymore." And it ends up she's a Lyran. Her whole life system is Lyran. They're lions. And when she went out front the next time, she had 6 lions out in front of her house. And she said, "I know I can write you about this because you're not going to think I'm crazy." And this woman happens to be from Puerto Rico. So I had suggested she go work with a reader who does a lot more extraterrestrial stuff than I do. And the woman was, you know, how when you're first meeting someone on Zoom, you're talking to them, you're explaining what's going to happen, blah, blah. And the woman who is the reader, she looked up and she said, "Oh my God, I've never met anyone from where you come from before." And the woman looked at her and said, "You've never met anyone from Puerto Rico?" And she said, no, you're Lyran. And she said, "What's Lyran?" And then all of a sudden she explained to her about why the lions. And when I was talking to her last night, I said, "Well, how's life going?" And she said, when I walk along, I have the lion that she's got a name for it, that it's on her left. And she said, "They follow me and they're helping me learn to do the things I need to do." But she said, "There's so many more of them than there were 3 years ago." And that's what I've heard is they're pouring in. Lyrans help us and they're pouring on the planet. Their energy is pouring on our planet. So that's my little extraterrestrial thing. I run into this all the time and I'm like, I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And we're going through a very special and a very unique time here on the planet as we move our consciousness forward, and we move to the next level of consciousness, and we do become multidimensional.
Mm-hmm. And it's nice to have multi-dimensional friends to talk to about it, because you know that's the sort of stuff that they used to give you pills and put you in the home about.
Well, that's true, but I think that there's a greater awareness now. the Indigo children who came in the late 90s, mid to late 90s,
Mm-hmm.
they're actually, they're moving into politics. They're moving into middle management positions and things like that. And so politics will be shifting, and corporations will be shifting. And so that's the thing. Right now, I know that we live in a volatile and uncertain world. And everything that I've gotten or received from the other side has said basically, hold your light. That is the most important thing you can do right now. And so rather than move into, and so we're going to feel, might feel fear, anguish, or something like this, or resentment about what's happening around us. And it's so important to release that and to basically stand in your light. Choose how you're going to feel, because of course it's your feelings that create your vibration, and your vibrations that create your reality.
Right. Little quantum physics in there.
A little quantum physics in there. That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. And there's somebody wanted you to do a complete analysis of what's Lemuria versus Atlantis. This is not a football game. They're just different things that happen on our planet. I think that's a long subject.
It's kind of a long subject. There were 3 incarnations, which Atlantis, generally speaking, Atlantis was a colony of Lemuria. So obviously they existed contemporaneously, but Atlantis was different than Lemuria. So
right. So that's the answer, guys. And I was in both of them, and I got out of Atlantis alive. So what can I say?
yeah, I mean, a lot of people did not stay till the end, which was the 3rd incarnation of it, and they didn't need to. You didn't need to experience a violent death, and so
No.
and so, but you have decided to. I know that you've had an illness, and I know that you had the opportunity to
Cross.
and so I appreciate the fact that you decided to come back and continue with the YouTube and do things like this. It's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and you have your impact and the benefit that you're providing here is much greater than you can imagine. So,
well, it's like I feel like I've had so many opportunities to meet so many wonderful healers and psychics and people, and through my whole life. One of the first psychics I ever met was a nun, and she looked at me and she said, "You're a special person. Don't ever let them tell you you're not." And then she proceeded to tell me about a vision she had in her early nunship, where she was setting up a children's theater, and this man walked out of the canvas that she was working on, the stage set, and he said, "You're a fool, but you'll make it." And she said, "Remember that. You can be a fool, but you'll make it." And she's tiny. Her sister was Sister Mary Fernanda, and she grew up. I mean, this how long ago it was, how old she was when she was talking with me. Her family lived on a piece of real estate next to Al Capone. So, and I've had people like that my whole life that were, so I really appreciate how some people have, of course, when I was in politics, I didn't tell people what I did. But when I was finished and I came out from being in politics, the wine bar I read at was a place where a lot of political groups had meetings. And they'd come up to me and they'd look at me and they go, "Have you always been like this?" And I just smile at them like, "Yes, I know everything you did. Thank you." So just, when you want to explore. When you hear something, this is the one thing I keep telling people. The way I met Bob was somebody mentioned Akashic Records. I tried to read a book on it. I couldn't get a hold of it. I mean, I just couldn't hold on to it in my mind. And so my friend said, "We ought to book an appointment." And if you don't know me, I'm really cheap. I don't book appointments easily, but I booked an appointment with Robert. And it's sort of the whole thing of, well, he gave me a great understanding of the Akashic Records that I use in my practice to tell people how to use different skills. And just listen to what your heart's telling you need to hear, and you'll grow. And I'm hoping I can present enough interesting people here that they will want to come along for the ride. It's a lot of fun.
Yep, that's true. As I said, sometimes the non-physical feels more real to me than the physical. So,
Well, that's been true for my whole life, but we won't go there. Anyway, thank you to everyone who came. Thank you to everyone who stayed. Thank you to everyone who waited through my 30 minutes of talk. And I really love and enjoy each one of you. And I'm going to be taping some more of these next week. The one that you'll see is on Tuesday with Dr. Gail, and she'll be happy to know that the Akashic Records now have her people in it too. And you will be, I learned something every single day. I didn't know that if I stormed around in the caves long enough, I'd find all of that.
The journey never ends. That's a fact.
Yeah, the journey never ends. And I look forward to seeing you. I will be doing my show with Scott on Sunday, which is about the dreaded theory of politics. And everybody, you take care. And bye, Bob. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nancy. Bye now.